Good morning. I would like to welcome everyone to the February Public Safety News Conference. I am Kyra Boyd, the Public Information Officer for the Winston-Salem Police Department. To our media partners, thank you all for coming today, and I would like to remind you all to please sign the sign-in sheet at the podium if you would like to have a copy of our presentation today. At this time, I would like to welcome Chief Katrina Thompson.
Good morning. I'm Police Chief Katrina Thompson of the Winston-Salem Police Department. And on behalf of the women and men of our agency, I want to welcome you all to the February 2022 Public Safety News Conference. Please first join me in honoring our fallen officers for the months of December and January. Sergeant Leland Glenn Teague, end of watch, December 26, 1927. Sergeant Teague died from gunshot wounds received 2 weeks earlier when he and several other officers raided a home on Oak Street while searching for a suspect wanted for murdering a security guard. The suspect was arrested and convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. Police Officer Donald Aldred, end of watch, December 3rd, 1983. Patrolman Aldred died from injuries received 5 days earlier when he was struck by a truck while investigating an automobile accident. Police Officer Robert Betrago, end of watch, January 15th, 1994. Officer Betrago was shot and killed while attempting to stop a robbery at a grocery store where he was shopping off-duty. Officer Betrago had served with the agency for only 6 months. The suspect was apprehended and sentenced to life in prison. Police Officer Michael Ray Jennings, end of watch, January 29th, 1993. Officer Jennings was killed when his car slid into a tree and burst into flames as he was driving down a steep hill. His partner was injured in the accident but did survive. Now please join me in a moment of silence as we honor those officers as well as all women and men across our country who paid the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you. Before I move on, I want to take this time to acknowledge how challenging this past week have been for the people who serve in public safety as well as for citizens in our community. I want to sincerely thank all of the women and men who work in public safety in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, for risking their lives for the past week to ensure the safety of our residents. Thank you for your selflessness and commitment to the citizens of our city and our county today and every day. Upcoming events. The Public Safety and Recreation, Parks and Recreation Black History Celebration will be held virtually on Sunday, February 20th. The program will be available to view at 1 p.m. and can be seen on WSTV Digital Media, the city's YouTube channel, and the city's website. The police department will be honoring retired lieutenants Kevin Sawyer and Delray Anthony. Up next from the police department, you will hear from Officer J.C. Temis, who will be introducing to you one of our newest canines. She will be followed by Corporal M.L. DeMay, who will be giving you an update on winter driving. He will be followed by Sergeant K.S. Bowers, who will have a presentation on our WSPD blanket campaign. After that, you will hear from Chief Mayo and the Winston-Salem Fire Department. Officer Temis.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Officer J.C. Temis with the Winston-Salem Police Department. I'm also part of our gun crime reduction unit. And here is my canine Luigi. He's an explosives detection canine. He was donated to the Winston-Salem Police Department through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms to enhance community safety for Winston-Salem. Canine Luigi and I were specifically selected to be trained through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms National Canine Division Program. Luigi and I trained for 10 weeks. That training encompassed both classroom and practical exercises. Luigi and I were certified through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms National Canine Division to detect approximately 19,000 different explosive odors and components. Luigi indicates the presence of those odors through a passive response. Luigi and I conduct 7 days a week training to maintain his proficiency in odor detection. We're both required to recertify annually through the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Canine Division. I believe Luigi will be an asset to Winston-Salem Police Department and will be able to enhance the safety of our residents and visitors through his ability to detect explosives that could cause serious injury or potentially loss of life that may otherwise go undetected. We would like to thank the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Canine Division for the community safety resource.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Corporal M.L. Dime with the Traffic Enforcement Unit. I have a presentation on winter driving safety. First thing is first, make sure your vehicle is ready to go for the winter driving. Make sure you have plenty of fluids, oil, brakes, transmission. Make sure it's at a suitable level. Make sure your tires are inflated properly. Make sure your vehicle's brakes are working, windshield wipers, your heat and defrost, make sure all of that is also working. We're going to talk about tires a little bit. Having a good set of tires will definitely increase your vehicle performance as well as overall safety of the vehicle. Here you have 3 different levels of inflation. If your tires are overinflated, so what happened is only the center portion of the tire is making contact with the surface, which really reduces your traction, braking input, and steering input, which could be a hazard when it comes to winter driving. If your tires are properly inflated, what happened is the whole tire is making contact with the surface, and that's what you want in order to increase overall driving and performance of your vehicle. If your tires is underinflated, what happened is only the extreme edges of the tire is only making contact with the surface, which decreases traction and steering input, as well as braking. Snow chains and cables. This is a great tool to have. We as a police department have them in our police cars, and I'm sure you've seen us driving around during the winter with snow tires on. The ride can be very bumpy, but it definitely increases your traction and control of your vehicle. The only thing about them, you can't go above 30 to 35 miles per hour, which you shouldn't be going that fast anyways during winter driving. So if you have front-wheel drive, you can put them in your front tires. If you have rear-wheel drive, put them in the back. De-icers are also a great tool to have, especially if your windshield is freezing up. Defensive driving. So defensive driving is pretty much being able to anticipate any hazard in front of you and taking evasive action to maneuver through that hazard. Some of the defensive driving examples are increasing your following distance, especially if the road is icy. Because during normal condition, I think the following distance is 2 to 4 seconds. So if there's ice on the road, make sure you increase that to 6 to 10 seconds following distance. Do not follow in the same lane of travel. For example, if there's a car in front of you and the right lane is open, just take that right lane, which decreases any hazard in front of you in case you start to slide. Hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Some of the careless and reckless driving that could be charged during a winter storm is following too closely, driving too fast for conditions, and unsafe lane changes. Plan your route. If you normally leave your house 15 minutes before 8, just try to leave maybe 30 minutes prior, just to give you plenty of time to get to your destination, especially if there's a road closure. Try to have more than one route. If you normally take University Parkway to go to work, maybe try to have a different route just in case that road is closed that day. Keep track of the weather. If it gets worsened or if it gets better, that's probably a good thing to know. Choose routes with minimal grades and hills. I personally experienced this with the last winter storm we had at 7th and West End, which is very hilly. I got there, parked my vehicle, was in park, and my car began to slide. So law of gravity might not be your friend there. Let family member know about your intended route. This could help you in case you get stranded and your phone dies or you can't make contact with the police or whoever. It's definitely a good thing to let your family or your friends know which way you take to go to work or have a backup route in the event there's a road closure. Like I said earlier, just have more than one route planned. This will definitely help you if traffic is backed up or there's a crashes along your route. Driving in winter weather. Bridges will ice before roadways. Beware of black ice. Unfortunately, during night driving, we can't really see black ice, and drivers tend to be caught off guard. So just be aware of that and take your time, slow down. Driving in winter weather, slow acceleration and deceleration. So you don't want to just stump on the gas and hope that you'll gain traction. Just take it easy, be smooth with it, smooth acceleration and deceleration. Small steering input, don't jerk the wheel to the left or to the right, just be smooth with it, like I said. Like I mentioned earlier, increase your following distance. During normal condition, the following distance is 2 to 4 seconds. In winter condition, you might want to increase that to 6 to 10 seconds. If you start to slide, don't hit the brakes. Just let the car do its thing. Take your foot off the accelerator. If you start to, if you steer into the slide. So what I mean by that, if the back end of your car start to fishtail to the right, steer to the right. If the back end start to fishtail to the left, steer to the left. Rapid acceleration equals no tracking, no movement. So if you, like I said, if you stump on the gas, hoping that you'll gain traction, it's not gonna go anywhere, you're just spinning your tires. Maintain a slow speed, a slow and steady speed. Four-wheel drive, that's just a tool. Don't overestimate your four-wheel drive. It can slide or lose traction just like a two-wheel drive. According to General Order 20-129.4, every time there's sleet, snow, or inclement weather, you should have your headlights on. It just increases visibility. This is a common issue that we face every time there's a winter storm. Power lights might go out and people, I guess, forget that there was a light up there, so they just drive right through the intersection. If this happened, treat it just like a four-way stop. Come to a complete stop, look to your left, look to your right before you proceed through the intersection. These are just a couple of scenarios in case you come to a four-way stop. So for example, in this scenario, the red vehicle arrives at the intersection just prior to the silver one. Of course, the vehicle that got there first has the right of way. In this scenario, two vehicles arrive at the intersection at the same time. As you should know, you should always yield to the vehicle to your right. And in this last scenario, the red vehicle is trying to make a left turn and the silver vehicle is going straight ahead. The vehicle making a left turn should always yield. Conclusion, if you don't have to drive, just stay home, enjoy your family, and stay warm. Ensure your vehicle is safe and prepared for winter driving. Slow and steady wins the race. Plan accordingly and allow for safe commute. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kevin Bowers. I'm one of the sergeants for the Downtown Bike Patrol for the Winston-Salem Police Department. I'm here today to talk about our Downtown Bike Patrol Blanket Campaign, which is an initiative for the police department to help out our homeless individuals who are downtown or either in other parts of the city. We're currently requesting for donations of gently used or new blankets. In addition, we'll accept knit caps or toboggans, even scarves, and then hygiene kits. Some folks won't even, as cold as it is, won't even go to a shelter, and so those come in handy as well. We have available resources, when folks do come to the Bike Patrol office, or we happen to see somebody out on the street, we will talk to them about getting their name, where they're from, whether it be from Winston-Salem or from another town, why they ended up coming to Winston-Salem, and then also we will then try to refer them to additional resources that we have. Various ones are City with Dwellings, the Bethesda Center, the Samaritan Ministries, Salvation Army, to name a few. And then if we need to directly refer folks, we'll do that as well. And then locations that we are accepting donations, of course, is the Downtown Bike Patrol office at 414 North Cherry Street, the Vivian H. Burke Public Safety Center at 725 North Cherry, the Alexander R. Beatty Public Safety Center at 12 North Patterson, the Winston-Salem Police Department District 1 office, Complex 7836 North Point Boulevard, the District 2 office at 1539 Walltown Street, and the District 3 office at 2393 Winter Haven Lane. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Trey Mayo. I'm the fire chief for the city of Winston-Salem. And if you notice on the agenda, the only item we have today is kind of going to review the timeline from the Winston Weaver Fertilizer plant fire from last week. But before I get started with that, and I'm going to move around, but I just want to, Chief Thompson summed it up very acutely, perhaps accurately. But I just wanted to echo her sentiments about the dedication of all the public safety folks who worked that event last week. There are literally hundreds of personnel involved in managing that incident, both on scene and remotely in a management role. We were buying meals for 60 people a day at the command post. So it kind of gives you a scale of, 60 people per meal. So that kind of gives you a scale of the operation at the command post. We appreciate the media coming out and helping us get information out to the public. But again, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who was involved, and thank you, Chief Thompson, for the support of your agency. I'm going to put this map up on the easel, and I'm going to step over to a different podium. You didn't think I was tall enough? You know, your computer never functions like you expect it to in a situation like this. I'll get you oriented on the map while I wait for this machine to wake up. So this is the Winston Weaver plant right here. This is West Rock. This map is north up. So we have literally days of radio traffic to go through. So this timeline, in some points, the times are specific, but in most of it, I've gone in 5, 10, or 15-minute increments. So these times are general within about 15 minutes of accuracy. So the first call was received at the Winston-Salem Emergency Communications Center at 6:42 p.m. And that initial call, I reported to you last week that initial call was from a plant employee, and that is not accurate. The first call actually came from a passerby. The second call that was received in the 911 center was from an employee on site. So upon receipt of that call, the telecommunicator handling fire communications dispatched our standard commercial building fire resource assignment, which was Engine 8 from Renolda Road, Engine 9 from Audubon Avenue, Engine 3 from Liberty Street, Engine 1 from Marshall Street, Engine 15 from Chatillon, the Old Town Inn. We have 2 stations on Chatillon Drive. Ladder 1 from Marshall Street and Ladder 18 from Peacehaven Road, and Rescue 1 from, everybody thinks that station's addressed on Country Club. It's actually addressed at 100 Arbor Road, but it's the one there at 5 Points that sits at the corner of Arbor and Country Club. Battalion 3 from Liberty Street and Battalion 1 from Marshall Street. The first arriving units at this facility should be Engine 14 and Ladder 14, which are, that station is on the east end of Chatillon Drive. Engine 14 and Ladder 14 were already on a call. So they cleared themselves from the call that they were on and added themselves to this assignment and canceled Ladder 18 coming from Peacehaven Road. So at that time, we had 6 engines, 2 ladders, a heavy rescue, and 2 battalion units responding. At 6:45, Engine 9 arrived on the scene and gave a size up to include heavy smoke and fire. They established incident command and requested a second alarm at 6:48. Engine 18, that second alarm got us Engine 18 from Peacehaven Road, Engine 20 from Bethania Rural Hall Road, and Ladder 18 that was on the initial alarm but canceled by Ladder 14. They were added back to the resource assignment. At 6:50, Battalion 3 arrived and assumed command from Engine 9. Hazmat 1, that's the fire department's hazardous materials unit. It was requested. It comes from Somerset Drive. We suspended medical calls citywide. City County Utilities was requested to boost water delivery to the fire hydrants in the area around the plant. And Engine 9 reported explosions coming from inside the building, and 3 2.5-inch hose lines, so they would be operated by personnel on the ground. 3 2.5-inch hose lines were placed into operation to begin cooling the piles of ammonium nitrate. And those 2.5-inch hose lines would be flowing 250 gallons of water a minute. At 6:55, Engine 1 reported fire throughout the building. Engine 9 reported exposure to the Norfolk Southern, that's Norfolk for you folks not from Northeast North Carolina, but to the Norfolk Southern rail line on the west side of the facility. And that rail line this is the main rail line right here, and then there's a spur that comes off the main line and runs into the plant right here. So Engine 9 this is at 6:55, Engine 9 was reporting exposure of that rail line, and Incident Command through the 911 center requested that Norfolk Southern cease rail traffic on this line. At 7 p.m., Engine 1 reported a collapse of various parts of the building. Ladder 1, which is the tractor drawn aerial, that's a 101-foot aerial ladder that is assigned at the Marshall Street station. They had set up right here, and they were flowing from a heavy stream from an elevated position, protecting this building right here. This building is where Weaver primarily stores finished bagged product that's ready to go out. Stuff like you would see at Lowe's, Home Depot, or True Value, that kind of 40 or 50 pound bags of finished product. So ladder 1 was set up here, and they were able to protect that building, but they were reporting high heat exposure to the ladder and the firefighters operating on it. So Command assigned Engine 3 to assist with cooling, and Engine 3 was set up generally in this area right here, and they placed 2 heavy streams in operation, one ground-based monitor flowing approximately 500 gallons a minute, and then they also placed what we refer to in the industry as a deck gun. It's a heavy stream appliance that is hard mounted on top of the fire truck behind the cab. They placed it into service flowing 600 gallons a minute in an effort to help cool the fire in this part of the building that was exposing the underside of ladder 1 to excessive heat. Also at 7 o'clock, Engine 9, again giving reports from the west side of the building, reported that fire was advancing across the railroad tracks and into the vegetation toward the West Rock facility, which is right here. And at 7 o'clock, Battalion 4 arrived on the scene. At 7:10, Incident Command requested a third alarm. Again, I'm giving you some of these things in rough time estimates, but the exact time of the request for that third alarm was 7:06, and that got Engine 4 from MLK Junior Drive, and Engine 5 and Ladder 5 from Palmer Lane. Palmer Lane is off of Clemensville Road. At 7:20, Engine 1 reported flammable liquids mixing with ammonium nitrate and heavy collapse on the north side of the building and explosions in that area. Given that report, the Incident Command ordered abandoning all hand-operated hose lines in favor of going to master stream, heavy stream appliances only, either based on aerial ladders those deck guns that are hard mounted on the top of fire trucks behind the cab, or we have some one-person operated ground monitors that flow 500 gallons a minute from a 2.5-inch hose line. That at about that time, about 7:20, Engine 9, again, they're operating on the west side of the building. They reported involvement on the rail car. There were 3 rail cars here, 2 almost in the building, and 1 was about halfway in the building and halfway out of the building. But Engine 9 reported involvement of those rail cars from the fire that had moved through the building. But they reported that smoke was obscuring the rail cars and they could not see the DOT placard that identified the contents of the car. Upon that report, Incident Command assigned Ladder 5, which was one of the 3rd alarm resources, to come in at West Rock, and they set up right here. There's a fire hydrant, a yard hydrant on the back of this truck lot, and Ladder 5 was able to set up right here utilizing that yard hydrant and direct 2 heavy streams across the railroad tracks and on the rail cars that were in this part of the building. Also, at approximately 7:20, Engine 1 and Engine 3, remember Engine 3 was set up in this area right here to help him protect Ladder 1 from heat. They were moved back from the building due to excessive heat. And Engine 3, this is a driveway right here. You can't tell it on this map because the trees obscure it, but this driveway split. So when you come in off Cherry Street, there's a driveway here, and then there's a driveway over here. And Engine 3 was back down the driveway toward Cherry Street, where they could continue to flow water from their deck gun into this area of the building. At 7:50, Engine 9, again on the west side of the building, they reported that they were able to get close enough to the rail cars to report that Ladder 5's heavy streams were doing an adequate job of cooling those rail cars, and that they could identify that the rail car that was sticking half out of the building was placarded with UN 1942, which is the DOT transportation placard that identifies pure ammonium nitrate. Upon getting that information, Command was able to get in touch with a Weaver employee who was on site, and they did advise that ammonium nitrate car that was placarded 1942 was fully loaded, which was that's 90 tons of ammonium nitrate on board that car. Given that information, Command ordered an evacuation of all personnel from the west side of the building. At 8:20, we estimate that we had applied 600,000 gallons of water since we arrived about 6:45, and fire conditions were not improving. So Command ordered a full evacuation of all personnel and apparatus, and that's when we established that 1-mile evacuation distance. We left Ladder 5 over here flowing on the rail cars, and we also left 2 engines, and I don't remember now which engines they were, and I don't remember exactly where they were left, but we deemed that it would take too much time to get them unhooked and turned around and get them out, so we just left those 2 engines behind and left Ladder 5, and we left about 5,000 feet of hose on the ground. Ladder 5, sometime overnight from Monday into Tuesday, ran out of fuel, and so the engine and pump shut down, and it just continued to flow water off of hydrant pressure. At 8:44, a command post was established at 319 Perimeter Point Boulevard, and that's where we operated until Friday, February 4th, when we were able to secure the state's mobile command trailer, and we set it up approximately right here, and that's where it remained until about lunchtime Monday, when operations were significantly scaled down. At 11 o'clock on Monday night, we had been successful through calling back off-duty personnel and utilizing our mutual aid resources in the county to backfill all of our fire stations. And then at 4 a.m. Tuesday morning, we were able to resume our medical response program. And over the course of the, from start to finish, the estimate is that we flowed 4.12 million gallons of water at this event. So that includes the timeline as I have it now. We will have, we are working, Emergency Management Director August Vernon is here somewhere. I've seen him this morning, but he and I and Assistant City Manager Tony have been in conversation about hiring a consultant to help us conduct an after-action report. And so we will have a lot more information in the coming weeks and months, but you're kind of up to speed on what went on last week as we have that information available for dissemination now. And I'll take any questions that you may have.
Is that amount of water that you guys used on this fire, is that a large amount of water compared to other fires? How would you describe that?
Well, I don't want to seem smart, like a smarty pants, but the volume of water we use is in proportion to the fire. So, you know, if you get into the, this is not a fire behavior or physics class. I know you all don't want me to get into the details of that, but a given amount of fire which is generating a finite number of BTUs requires X amount of water to reduce those to absorb those BTUs. You know, those BTUs are being produced. If you want to make the fire go out, you have to apply a cooling agent in sufficient quantity to absorb more BTUs than the fire is able to create. So again, that's a little bit of a dissertation to say we put water on the fire as quickly and as large a volume as we can in an effort to overwhelm the fire with cooling agent as quickly as possible. So water application is in proportion to the size of the fire.
That picture is a lot different than what's left over of that structure today. Obviously, most of that structure is gone now that the fire has burned through, but there is still some larger standing. I'm not quite sure what they were to the fertilizer plant, but I wonder, as of right now, are there plans to completely demolish and clear that site, any structure? I mean, most of it's pretty much gone at this point, but I wonder if you could provide any insight into that.
Well, I'm speculating a little bit and speaking on behalf of the folks at Weaver, but from my summation, it appears that the facility is completely destroyed, and the Weaver folks have, I think, working with their insurance folks, they do have a contractor on site who appears to be picking through the remains. And again, I'm making a little bit of an assumption, but it looks like to me they're going to haul it off.
And I wanted to follow up with a question that I had asked last week, and it was too soon to kind of reflect back, but there are a number of buildings that could potentially be grandfathered into the same codes that the Weaver facility was. Have you had a chance to talk to city leaders or get a feel for how many other buildings were grandfathered into older building codes, and have you had any discussions on what the city and fire department might do to make sure that that doesn't happen there?
So the question is about other buildings and facilities that are grandfathered in due to the fact that they were built in unincorporated Forsyth County at the time. The city has kind of grown to them and around them, and what may be done to address those buildings. And There have been some very preliminary discussions, but that would be all I could tell you this morning.
Chief, have you had a chance to get back into start getting into the part of the building where you think the fire may have started?
Yes. So the question was, have we been able to get into the part of the building where we believe the fire started? And the answer to that question is yes.
And do you think that'll be, from what you see so far, your guys believe that they will be able to relatively quickly come to a conclusion about what started, or does it look like it's gonna be a complicated? I don't know if you can maybe characterize that or not.
The question is, how long do we think it's going to be before we have a determination of the cause and origin of the fire? And I think it's going to be longer rather than shorter. When you have that much destruction, it creates some challenges in your cause and origin determination.
I wonder if you know, too, you said that second 911 call came from an employee. Was the production plant running at the time? Or maybe, you know how recently some of that machinery had been on before you got that call that there was a fire there?
Well, the question is about, was production underway at the time of the fire? How long had machinery been running? What I can tell you is that the plant was open and operating Monday before the fire, and I think they ceased operations about 4:30. But beyond that, probably that question would be better directed at folks who actually work at the facility.
Can you tell us about any runoff from the site or possible environmental issues the community is facing?
Not in specific. So the question is about runoff from the site, and I cannot answer those questions probably as specifically as you would like to have them. That's kind of beyond the fire department's scope of responsibility.
Chief, I'm curious whether, you know, the December incident that was at that plant involved some machinery, I think, that malfunctioned and got into some products. And I'm curious as to whether you've been able to determine whether that problem might have been in the same area as the problem that this fire started, and whether there might be any connection at all.
The question is about an incident that we responded to in, I think it was December 26th at the Weaver facility, and whether the situation in December was related to the fire last Monday night. And so the incident in December was an overheated bearing in some piece of electrical equipment, and it is remote from where we believe the point of origin is from the fire Monday night. They are a pretty good distance away in the plant, so we do not believe that those two incidents are related.
Can I ask you, so you say that the rail car had pure ammonium nitrate at the back of the building, and then in the front of the building, they stored the finished product. So is this a manufacturing facility, or are they mixing, or what do they do?
Again, you're asking, so the question is about exactly what they do at this Weaver Fertilizer facility, and it is my understanding, speaking to plant representatives, that they do a lot of custom blending for large agricultural operations specific to like tobacco growers, pumpkin growers, large like industrial scale vegetable farming operations. I believe that is kind of the specialty of this facility is what I refer to as custom fertilizer blends.
The reason I ask you that is I'm wondering what other chemicals that you know of were in the building other than ammonium nitrate. They would have kept track of that.
Yes. The question is about what other chemicals were in the facility. And the only thing I can tell you that was in the facility in a bulk quantity that I am aware of right now is potassium nitrate, which is, as I understand it, potassium nitrate is kind of the direction the fertilizer industry is moving toward, because to still deliver nitrogen to plants that need it, but is a safer product to handle and manufacture than ammonium nitrate. Again, that's what I understand from folks we spoke to last week.
Keith, the employee who reported the fire, there was a report that was on the backloading dock. I don't
The question is about, is the accuracy of the report that the fire began in the loading dock area, and was the employee who reported the fire close enough to it to give specific information about where the fire began in the plant. I do not believe the fire began in the loading dock area. I don't know if that's where, smoke may have been coming from the loading dock when the employee reported it. I don't know yet what that correlation is between where we believe the fire began and the location of the loading dock. And I do not know specifics about how close the employee who reported the fire was to where the fire was burning at the time of report. But I do know that as part of the fire investigation, we conduct interviews with employees at the plant, so that information will be captured.
It shows on the map where you think it might have started. Is there a way to point your laser thing there?
There is a way for me to point. So the question is, can I point my laser at where I think the fire started? And yes, I can, but no, I'm not.
So you have an idea though, at this moment?
We do have an idea of where we believe the fire began, yes.
Why can't you show us that?
The question is, why can I not show you where I believe the area of origin is? And the answer to that question is, I do not want to do anything to corrupt the investigation.
I wonder too if you could also explain, according to the North Carolina Emergency Management Department, Weaver Fertilizer has filed a tier 2 chemical report for 2020 or 2021. Is that something you're aware of, or maybe could you explain what that tier 2 chemical report might include and if they're out of compliance? I don't know how much information you might have on that.
So the question is about Tier 2 reporting and whether we had a Tier 2 report from Weaver Fertilizer. So Tier 2 reporting is required by federal law for commercial occupancies that store what I call reportable quantities of certain chemicals. So you may have, a reportable quantity, if it's the right chemical, it might be a teaspoonful. And you're testing this is a long time since I've had that kind of training. But if I remember correctly, in most cases, reportable quantities are typically at about 1,000 pounds of whatever it is. It may be acid, it may be, in this case, ammonium nitrate. There are lots of things that require, lead requires Tier 2 reporting. But yes, we did have a Tier 2 report from Weaver.
You did, and do you mind sharing what year that was, or what year that report is from? Because according to emergency management, there wasn't one filed from 2020 or 2021.
I don't know you've got some information? Emergency Management Director Vernon, which is, emergency management is the collection point for those Tier 2 reports. He has more specific information. He can answer that question better than I can.
I'll attempt to. All right, good morning. As far as Tier 2s, and I'm sorry I didn't have all the information in front of me. Tier 2 is an annual reporting that is mandated by Congress, has been around since the 80s, and we have a system called ER Plan Net. And what Tier 2 is supposed to do, due to some very tragic incidents in the 80s where first responders were killed in the United States, it is where industry, business and industry, will report the amount of materials they have on site, where they're located, and again, it's just based on an average. It can change on any given day, any given week, any different month. And if they have to put them in an electronic filing system, and that report is available to our first responders, our 911 centers, to emergency management. Just in Forsyth County alone, we have over 290 facilities that report hazardous materials. But again, that could be anything from pool chemicals to gasoline to battery acid that's in a battery bank that keeps a cell tower running if they lose power. So it's a pretty diverse and widespread amount of reporting. Our understanding, and obviously we did check immediately, the last report that we received through the ER plan is 2019.
So if they didn't submit one for 2020 or 2021, I guess, in effect, they would be out of compliance. Are there any repercussions for that?
We're not a compliance office. We certainly ask that it's an unenforceable, we have no means to enforce that here in the city or county. We certainly ask and request that business and industry does that. The state could probably better answer some of those questions. But we ask that every agency or entity that meets those requirements to submit those annually. And
That made any difference in this fire?
did it make any difference? I'm not going to speculate. Again, it's good to have that information because it gives us a general idea of how much material there is, where it's at, what materials are in the facility. But with a location with that much material, it would still give us a general idea. And it also has information on a general map of the site. It also has emergency contacts and some basic information like that.
And is that asked for by the federal or state government or both?
It's federally mandated, but also through state emergency management that will happen, that they are asked to report those annually.
Chief, I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about, I know the investigation is still in infancy, but I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about lessons learned or reflections now that we're past the 1 week mark.
The question is about reflections of how things went last week and what we may improve upon. And that's that after-action report that I mentioned earlier, that will be better captured in that after-action report. You know, as much as anything is we want other fire departments to learn what we did last week, both good and bad, because one of the things that was very beneficial to us is we could online reference the Chemical Safety Board's report on the West Texas fertilizer explosion and know what they did and didn't do, how much they had relative to what we had, and we were able to make some very good early decisions, like within the first 60 minutes of the incident, based on that report from West Texas. So we want to be sure that we are providing a similar report. It won't be as detailed as something from the Chemical Safety Board, but it will be, from an operational standpoint, something that other fire departments will be able to use. We got a question back here.
At what point in the timeline did emergency messaging start going out to the public and the folks who live around? And how prepared do you think the city was to notify them of the gravity of this situation as it was unfolding?
We started that process about 8:30. When I left the fertilizer plant. So the question is about when did emergency messaging go out, and how prepared was the city to do that. When I left the plant about 8:20 or so to head to the command post, I called our marketing and communications director, and he left his house right then and came to the command post. So that messaging started quickly. We saturated that area with what the public calls reverse 911. The city has a citizen notification system for folks who have signed up to receive messaging from the city. We use the technology that everybody has on their wireless device, like when you get an Amber Alert or weather alert or something, we use that technology. We use social media. We send it out via print and broadcast media. And then we put fire trucks and police cars on the ground inside that 1 mile evacuation area. And we have a mechanism by which we can sit at the command post and look at that 1 mile evacuation area and see the fire trucks that are on the road and make sure that they have covered all the roads. So I think the city did really well in getting out that evacuation notice through all means available to us.
I'm curious, you mentioned, I'd have to check this again, at the point you realized that the rail car had the ammonium nitrate, we know that the bulk of it was not in the rail car, it was elsewhere in the facility. Can you walk us through how you realized where the
So so the question is about how and when did we recognize that there were 500 tons approximately of AN, ammonium nitrate, in the plant. So when I arrived, I had just received a text message from one of our hazmat captains who had given me, what you can capture in a text message of sort of the properties of ammonium nitrate and what we needed to be thinking about. And then shortly after that, I got a call from the fire marshal who spent a lot of time in hazardous materials, Assistant Chief Byram. He spent a lot of time on the hazardous materials team when he was still riding the fire truck. And he was giving me the rundown while simultaneously referencing the Chemical Safety Board report of the West Texas event. And so when that's 5 minutes, I had that information, and a plant employee, I just happened to be, it could have been any of our folks could have been in the right position. I just happened to be standing in the right position. I had been briefed on the characteristics of the chemical of the product, and a plant employee walked by, and I stopped him and I said, how much ammonium nitrate is in this facility? And he said, there are 2 bins in the facility, and each of them have a capacity of 300 tons. So I knew that from that 10-second conversation that there was as much as 600 tons of product in the facility, and within 5 minutes, the operations chief, with Chief Byram still on the phone, with EM Director Vernon and we huddled, and it didn't take us but just a few seconds to say, this is not a safe place to be. We are not making this fire any better, and we made the decision in that huddle to evacuate the plant of firefighters and establish the 1 mile evacuation zone.
So at that 8:20 mark.
Approximately.
And I think my last question, you said something last week that when we were talking about evacuations, and you said, I just don't understand if the firefighters aren't within this 1 mile radius, why the public chose to stay within that radius. So I just don't understand why they would think that's safe. Do you think a week later, the first responders involved and the folks that live nearby really truly grasp how bad this could have been had that ammonium nitrate exploded?
The question is about has the public or emergency responders, have they grasped the kind of the gravity of the situation, of the potential for detonation of the product? And I would be speaking for other folks. I think a lot of people, based on comments and phone calls and emails and text messages, and I've gotten cards in the mail, my perception is that a lot of people understood the gravity of the situation, and I don't know how we could have communicated that any more clearly than to say this is potentially one of the largest explosions. There's enough ammonium nitrate here to potentially be one of the largest explosions in U.S. history. Now, would it have been on the scale of 3 Mile Island? Well, I don't know. Would it have been on the scale of the nuclear weapons that were lost off of a B-52 and down in Goldsboro back in the 60s? I don't know, but I know what happened in West Texas. I know what happened in Texas City back in, I think that explosion was in the 40s, and I know how much product was in Winston-Salem, and I know there was a lot of potential there, and we got out of it. We made some good decisions, but we had a little bit of luck on our side too.
If you look at the price tag on the firefighting efforts, what would you estimate on how much you guys have spent with water, with firefighter crews, stuff like that?
So the question is about what was the cost of fighting the fire, and unfortunately, utilities does not charge us for water, and I don't know what it costs to make 4.12 million gallons of water, so I can't answer that question. From a fire department standpoint, the investment in fire trucks has to be there whether you have a fire or not. The people are on duty, the firefighters are on duty whether you have a fire or not. So those are costs that the city would have been borne by the city anyway. What we can put our fingers on is the hose that we left behind that was burned. We broke the windshield in a fire truck, and we lost one of those small one-person ground nozzles that I was talking about earlier, about $30,000 for that stuff.
Obviously, there was a lot of smoke throughout the community. People had some concerns about what they breathed in. What can you say to those concerns from the public?
The question is about the concerns from the public about what they breathe in as products of combustion. So we had pretty early on Monday, we had representatives. So Monday night, we had a state regional hazmat team here from Greensboro that they were doing atmospheric monitoring outside the 1 mile evacuation area. And then Tuesday morning, sometime during the day Tuesday, I don't remember exactly what time, we had a representative from the EPA here, and they had monitors out. And as I described last week in some of the news conferences, the products of combustion that they were measuring were generally described as irritants, things that would make you cough and sneeze and your eyes water if you were sensitive to those things, compounds of sulfur and ammonia. Now, you know, there are lots of things. I mean, you heard about Luigi earlier, who his nose is capable of detecting, I think she said, 19,000 different explosives. A dog's nose is way better than any kind of meter a human has ever created. So I say that to say we don't have the capacity to measure everything, but from what we did have the capacity to measure and the things that would have given the EPA or the hazardous materials folks concern, they describe them as relatively low toxicity outside the 1 mile area where they were monitoring.
And I wonder real quickly if you could just tell us about one change that we have seen on the site with fencing going up, a little bit more, excuse me, I lost my train of thought. Tell us about the rationale for putting that fencing up and maybe some of the repercussions if a curious person in the community tries to go near that site.
The question is about fencing that is being put up on the site and you know, what sort of danger there is for somebody who wanders on site. So that fencing is an effort to secure the facility from folks wandering on site. You know, at a minimum, there's a chance of getting cut on a piece of rusty tin or, you know, and getting tetanus or those sorts of things. But it's just not a place that the public needs to be. I mean, there are chemicals in there that have been exposed to fire. You know, there's an odor, you know, just like if, you know, a lot of things generate odor. Well, if you're able to detect an odor with your nose where you're drawing something in, may or may not be harmful, but it is not recommended that folks be up there kind of poking around out of curiosity. We've been transparent, and we will continue to be that way about what's going on the site within the realm of the fire department's responsibility. Yeah, so, I mean, and I think, I believe Weaver, the Weaver folks are providing 24-hour security. Probably, some of your folks doing off-duty. So some off-duty Winston-Salem police officers are providing 24-hour security to the site to shore up the fence.
I know that Weaver has hired a consulting group to work on the monitoring of the environmental after effects of the fire, but I'm wondering, are there other agencies that are here also doing that work, independent or governmental agencies? For example, is the EPA still here? Who else, is there ongoing environmental concern that is being monitored outside of what Weaver hired?
The question is about, is ongoing environmental monitoring going on? And the answer to that is, I think so. Is that your understanding, Ms.? Yes. Yeah, continuous, environmental monitoring is continuing, but that's beyond that's beyond my area of responsibility.
Chief Mayo, thank you for the questions, answering the questions. You've been very gracious, Mr. Fowler.
Chief Thompson cut me off during my news conferences, won't you? Okay, anything else of significance?
Quick question.
Last one.
The bins, where the thing is stored, where the ammonium nitrate is stored, were they fireproof?
Say that again.
Were the bins where the ammonium nitrate is stored, were they fireproof? Because I know that's something the chemical safety board wants to ensure.
The question is about the bins that contain the bulk ammonium nitrate and whether they were, I think the term you used was fireproof. And I can't answer that question with any sort of certainty.
Okay, you all, Chief Mayo, if there's other things you need to get involved in, please do it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. I don't-
Good day, I'm Tabitha Childress with the City of Winston-Salem Fire Department. This concludes our public safety press conference. If you would, please make sure that you sign in so that we can get you the information requested. Have a good day.